The beautiful thing of a limb-driven rest is you get the accuracy of a blade rest, but then you have the freedom of the fall away, right? So you can be far more accurate. You can time that rest exactly when it's fall. So if you're starting to get fletching contact, whether it's a tall vein or a stiff helical, you need to speed that rest up a little bit. It's staying up too long. So we have a lot of technical videos on our website that will kind of get you. So there's a way, if you have a draw board or access to a draw board, that you can time that rest perfectly. And like I like to set up mine where they're dropping 50% of the arrow. So they're getting a lot more guidance than your standard flip up rest that attaches to the cable. That's only 10% guidance. Those drop too fast. So your arrow's not even done paradoxing before that thing drops. Is where with a HAMSKEA or limb driven rest, you can have that arrow paradox, get some guidance, and then fall out of the way in time of your fletchings. So there's some big advantages to the limb attachment and kind of fine tuning where it's attached to your limb.
Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today we have an amazing guest. His name is John Vitera from HAMSKEA Archery. You guys know I've shot both HAMSKEA and QADs. They both have their pros and cons, in my opinion. My first ever rest on a bow, on a compound bow, was the HAMSKEA Trinity Pro, and that thing is still on the bow that's hanging up right there. I'll never get rid of that bow. And absolutely love that thing. It is bomb proof, excellent. And now there's the Epsilon 2.0 that's coming out that we're going to be talking about a little bit more, and so many other options as far as peeps go and being able to change out apertures and much, much more. So we'll get into all of that archery gear, nerding out. Definitely excited to share that with you guys. But before we get into that, first and foremost, thank you so much for the support, for all the growth on the channel. I really, really appreciate it, guys. 2025 has kicked off with a bang, and it has been awesome so far, and can't wait for the rest of the year that I get to share with you guys. And I want to let you know that if you listen on the audio only version, I will start picking a person each week for the next foreseeable future to send out some first form gear and or hats or something. I'm going to send you out some swag. I'll pick you out your review. I'm going to read it over the microphone here, and I appreciate all the support there. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, please go and leave a review. It's free, and I'm going to possibly pick you and send you out something in the mail. So make sure you leave that review. I really appreciate it. Also, here on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. It helps way more than you know, and I love engaging with you guys here on YouTube. It has been a blast. I love hearing about what gear you want me to go over and guests that we are going to have on the podcast and so much more. So definitely leave a review on the audio only and leave a sub and a comment on the YouTube versions. Last but not least, guys, all the discounts and how you can support the show down below. Discount codes, BlackOvis. We've got Canvas Cutter just came out with a new sleeping bag that you can get 25% off with code RedBeard. We've got, like I said, BlackOvis. We have Phorm. Use the link. You can get free shipping on orders over $75 or more for life, and so much more down below, guys. If you're interested in any of the gear that I've talked about that I use, such as Ollin, this amazing hoodie that I've got here, and so much more, go save some money, support the show. Thank you so much for that, and to the partners of the show as we roll into 2025. Now let's get into this podcast here with John Vitera, and let's nerd out on some archery stuff and HAMSKEA Archery, their rest, their peeps, and so much more. Let's get into this now, guys, with John Vitera. What's going on? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and today we have John. I should have asked you how to pronounce it, Vitera or Vitera?
Vitera.
Man, I totally screwed both of those up. All right, so we got John Vitera here, and he is the general manager at HAMSKEA. And you guys know I've got my original bow is still hanging up right here on my wall, and that one, I wanted the best of the best when I started shooting archery. So I started with the Trinity, and that thing is still, I mean, it's bomb proof. It's heavier than some of their newer stuff, but it is bomb proof. If you don't care about weight, I still recommend that rest to this day. But with that, HAMSKEA makes way more than just rest. Obviously, a lot of people know them for their rest in the hunting space and target space as well. Limb-driven rest, they do peeps. We're going to go into their new peep system, whether it be for target or for hunting, depending on what you're needing, and why you would choose HAMSKEA over some of the other options out there, depending on, again, what your scenarios are with hunting or target and the purpose for using your bow. But with that being said, I thank you so much again for your time today, John, and being willing to hop on here. But for people that don't know who you are you, man?
Well, it's my pleasure to be here and appreciate the opportunity to be on here and just talk to a new audience and kind of our core customer. You align with who we are, right? We're an American company, American made. Everything's built, assembled, and done here in Colorado. A lot of our machining is done in-house. We have some partners around us in Colorado and some across the country that machine for us. But, this company was founded 14 years ago by three bow hunters and archers that demanded more from their equipment than what they were getting. So our three original founders were Tim Gillingham, Sean Greathouse, and Andrew Munsell. And a little known fact is the name HAMSKEA is actually a put together of their nicknames. So Tim is the Hammer. Everyone knows Tim Gillingham is the Hammer. And Andrew Munsell is known as Skeeter, and Sean Greathouse is Easy. So they took their three nicknames and put it together in HAMSKEA. And what they've created is something individual, something people are, yeah, I have a HAMSKEA. Everyone knows HAMSKEA, so it's very recognizable and it just kind of rolls off the tongue. So it's an interesting story of the founders. Unfortunately, Tim Gillingham's not officially part of the company anymore, with his workings in the industry as well, but so we just have the two owners now, and Tim is still an instrumental part of our company and the development of products, but he'll always have a lot of input and work with us for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, and he's local here in Utah. He's always tinkering and making a bunch of stuff, with
always
Tim
tinkering is a nice way to put it for Tim. He is he breaks the walls of things people will or won't try. And we always say if he can't break it, most people won't be able to break it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But no, that's awesome. And yeah, again, being an American company and having it's not just a bunch of engineers, which there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of engineers together, but it's people that use the product along with good engineers and people that can make the product more robust and know the technicalities and in depth behind it.
We're pretty fortunate. Sorry. We're pretty fortunate. Most of our folks here do participate in archery. We have a few that don't, but all of our engineers are archers, hunters. Mainly, we are a bunch of bow hunters, and some of us dabble in target archery as well, but I think the overall passion of the group is hunting, and that kind of durability of our products. When we say it's a HAMSKEA, what that means is it's bulletproof. You're gonna put it on the bow and you're gonna forget about it. It's the last thing you're worried about in your setup. Whether it's our peep, our weights, or our rests, we try to build everything. If we wouldn't hunt with it, we won't come out with it. Whether it's our lowest offering in the rest lineup or whatever it is. If we won't hunt with it, we won't use it.
Yep. No, that's awesome. And I love, there's a good happy medium there of, again, if you have all engineers, the product probably doesn't look the best. It's not the most visually appealing, but it's going to function really well. And then if you have the other way where it's all marketing and you're like, oh, it looks really cool. It's awesome. And then it just doesn't work the best out in the field, or it breaks on you after a couple uses. And having, again, having the end user as part of the team that's putting things together can go out, and especially, again, Tim Gillingham, I don't know the other two guys very well, but I know that he beats up on his stuff, and it's good to have someone like that uses it in so many different scenarios that you're going to end up finding situations where it may not work the best, and let's tweak this before this launches and all this stuff, and that's always a great opportunity to have as a company and a product that, again, without a rest on your bow, your bow it's like not having a release. I mean, even without a release, you can kind of use your fingers, but without a rest, you can't really launch your arrow the way that you need to on a compound bow. And that's something that is vital. I mean, hunts depend on it, everything from high dollar hunts to the once in a lifetime drawings that people will get. All of that, and to think that one small cord or cable or spring or something like that can cause a difference between tagging out or not having your tag filled.
And that's a big thing that we tout as well with our rest is the engine of our rest is the bow limb, right? So with it being limb driven, that limb would have to fail for that rest to fail unless you have obviously a cord issue. But that cord is also D-loop material. People a lot of times don't realize. I mean, how tough are D-loops and how long do they last? So a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to get something snagged, but gosh, hunted with them for so long, and so we've had so many people that hunt in Alaska and name the worst places in the world. And how often do you snag your string and cables, right? And it sits right along it, usually under a quiver anyway. But what drives our rest is the actual limb of the bow. So it is the engine of the bow is the engine of our rest. And we tout ourselves on being the strongest, most reliable rest. We look at our numbers very closely of, potential warranty issues, returns, and things like that. It is a small, less than 1% of our stuff that comes back to us. And that's stuff that is not our manufacturing error. It's not, a failure of the rest or the equipment. It is very, very few and far between. I think we can tout that we have the least amount of manufacturer defects of anybody. Our quality control is unbelievably stringent. It's looked at multiple times all the way through the process, and if something's not going right, we can start over. So being a small company, controlling our own destiny, manufacturing our own parts, we can be very stringent.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple things about a limb driven rest. You can tune it a little bit better in the field, and you don't need a press to, again, if that string snaps, gets snagged on something. Most people have extra D-loop material in their truck or in their backpack. If you're backpacking in and you bring an archery repair kit, it's a lot easier to fix in the field than having to press it and feed it through a cable or anything else on your bow, and having to retime everything. And that's definitely something that is really, really important, again, if you need to have that peace of mind while you're out in the field. So I guess let's kind of break down some of the products you guys have come out with. Again, the new peep site, and we can talk about the different peep systems and everything that you offer. I know for me personally, and kind of the more, I guess, most of my audience is hunting, and so what they're going to throw in as a peep site is kind of, they may use the Raptor peep, they may use kind of whatever works for them there. That's not the sexiest thing that they're going to look at on a bow. It's usually the rest and your weights for your stabilizers. So
Yeah.
let's talk about this. I did a little video breakdown of the weights when I first got them. I've been using them on mainly my target bow, but these are the blacked out ones that you can use for your hunting rig as well. Because the target specific ones are more of a silver. They don't have the black coating on it. But again, you can use these black ones for both, hunting and target.
So the natural color, it's a 303 stainless, and it just doesn't have a coating. So that black also is 303 stainless as well. So you don't ever have to worry about oxidation or anything. So they're both made out of 303 stainless. One just has a coating on it.
Awesome. So let's kind of break it down here. So we've got, and this one is the one that the end cap that has the tool built into it. So there's a couple different end caps. There's one that has an indent that goes in, and then there's this one that has a built-in tool. So kind of walk us through the idea behind this setup right here. I've got a bunch of different weights on it, and the
So it looks like you've
here.
got the 1.1 ounce tooled end cap. So that has a rubber dampener on the end. So if you're running a long bar, or if you're just hunting, if you doink it or bump it on something, it's soft. It doesn't make a lot of noise. And also it's got some flutes machined into it that gives you a little more grip, because those weights they stick very well together. So that kind of gives you a little bit of leverage that you can use that as the tool to kind of release those weights. That is, the end caps are the only part of the weight system that doesn't have a set screw. Everything else, all the inline weights, you can actually lock them down with an Allen wrench. They'll never come off. But I've hunted with them
I didn't see that before.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of weight on my hunting bow, and I've shot them for 3 or 4 years and never locked them down and never had an issue with them coming loose. And even on my target bows, I don't lock them down. Now, some bows harmonics are different, vibrations are different, so you might lock them down because you might get a little bit of noise, but it's pretty few and far between that we see that folks need to lock them down. So you have a 1 ounce inline weight, you have a 4 ounce inline weight, and also an 8 ounce inline weight. And then the starter that bolts right onto your stabilizer or your riser. So if you want to use it for just counterbalance on the riser as well, you can mount it straight to the riser. That's a 2 ounce piece that starts the system. So with that combination of weight, you can pretty much make any denomination that you want.
Yeah. And so what he's talking about there with the Allen key, I honestly had never noticed it right there at the top. And it's got the magnets and they interlock with each other. And you just twist it and they pop off. Now, I know when we first got them going up to Wild Arrow, just kind of talking with the guys, you know, a thought that kind of runs through your head is, well, they're magneted together, so there's going to be a little bit more vibration. I haven't felt that whatsoever, even without locking them down. And I obviously didn't know about the Allen key or didn't think about it, so I
Hmm.
haven't locked any of my weights down, and it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't show or feel any other vibration than normal compared
Yeah,
to other weights I've used in the past. You've got different weights. So you've got this bigger one. Is that a 4 ounce?
that's a 4 ouncer. Yep,
Okay, and then these are 1 ounces each, right? The thinner
those are
ones.
1 ounce. Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so then you stack them in, and you can twist them on. They pop off. The magnets are pretty strong, and then they just lock into place there. And then you've got that end cap right there for your stabilizer that does
That's your
lock onto your.
starter there. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
yeah, your starter. You can mount that to the bow riser or to a stabilizer.
Okay. Oh, so you can mount it directly to. Do people do that a lot?
Hmm.
Where they'll mount it
Yeah.
directly? Probably more target.
Your recurve, bare bow archers. I've even done it on my target bow. I just wanted a little lower center mass weight, so I've done it on the back of my target bow, and I'll just add a little bit of mass to it.
Okay, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then these
Hmm.
weights will go on any stabilizers. Obviously, I've got the Quattro stabilizers here that you guys have heard me talk about, but they'll lock on any stabilizer just like any other weight system will. And so that's pretty awesome to be able to, especially if you're swapping stabilizers from maybe your if you're hunting. I always recommend you've got a backup bow at least at the truck. Maybe keep notes of. Maybe you don't want to have multiple stabilizer setups. You just have one stabilizer setup that you move from bow to bow. This makes it super easy to be able to just pop that whole weight system off and say you got to move it to your backup bow or whatever, and then you have a note somewhere saying how much weight you tuned your bow with and you shot your bow with, getting it set up. Swap the bar over, put the weight system on that you need, and you're good to go instead of having to screw around with a bunch of Allen keys and such.
Hmm.
And then of course, if you're out there beating your stuff up, I've had it happen where rain gets in a little bit and it gets a little rusted on the screw, and then you can't unlock your weights, and then you're sitting there cranking on it, then you strip something. There's so much that goes into possibilities there, and so this system is really really awesome uh, to be
Yeah,
able to
we
have
we've
on.
done a lot of we've done a lot of testing with it, but we also still recommend, like, say you're out, on a backcountry hunt and you're going to get weather, right? Snow, rain, sleet, all of the above. After you come back from a hunt, we recommend just kind of breaking them apart, maybe putting a little WD-40 on a rag and just lightly coating them. That's always good practice, but that's good practice on all of your equipment anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't treat your bows and stuff like I do, guys. I had a guy literally ask me if I dug my truck out with my RX-8 one time because it was so coated in mud and everything from just the season. I was like, no, I just kind of don't clean my bow until the end of all my hunts. Like,
I yeah, I have to admit I do the same thing. It's a hammer to me, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
it's a tool and I use it, and honestly, we're trying to break stuff, right? I'm trying to be hard on stuff because if we treat our stuff harder than anybody else will, then,
Yeah.
we'll be good because it's not going to fail or cause issues. So,
Yeah.
but oh
Yeah.
yeah, you could dig a truck out with our rest no problem. Use it as
Yeah.
tire chalk, whatever you need.
That's awesome. Yeah, I dropped my bow out of a tree stand this year. So, and it wasn't the
Yeah,
nice soft leaves that it fell on either. It got
yeah.
pretty beat up. But no, yeah, it's that weight system is really sweet. So, we've gone over the weight system. Now, I want to
Hmm.
I've gotten some questions about the difference between the Epsilon and the Everest. And the Everest was one that you guys came out with this year. And I haven't put my hands on that one because I just used the Epsilon. And before that I used the
Yep.
Trinity. And so even on my target bow over there, I've got the Epsilon. I just swapped out the target blade for it instead of the hunting rest. And
Hmm.
so I've got that on my target bow, and then on the hunting rig that actually, I guess this is coming out in January. So if you missed out on the bow giveaway, sorry guys, but there was an Epsilon on the Alpha X33 that I gave away, and it just, again, bomb proof, just excellent rest. But what's the main? I guess start with the reason why you came out with the Everest when it looks so similar to the Epsilon. What's the reasoning there?
So the difference, you're used to the Trinity and the Epsilon, which are three bearing designs, right? So that carrier rod where the launcher's mounted to is encapsulated by that lower body, right?
Hmm.
And just like you had mentioned earlier, the weight is so important to a hunter. So
Hmm.
the Everest is lighter because it doesn't have that third bearing, that body going out there. Also, the Everest has a micro tune blade angle adjustment. So when you're
Okay.
switching to target or your paper tuning, so it doesn't have your traditional micro tune for your windage and elevation, but a lot of that, honestly, for the hunter, you set up your bow, you get it tuned, and you don't ever mess with it again. It's not like you're a target archer where you're tinkering with stuff
Yeah.
all the time.
Brief interruption to the show. I want to remind you of one of the amazing partners of the show, BlackOvis. And actually, right now, as you're listening, head over to the link down below and you can get entered to win a 6x8 blackout jumping jack trailer. You're giving it away, guys. So, highly recommend that you go and check that out. You can get extra entries by buying BlackOvis specific gear. So I'll leave that link down below. You'll be supporting the show here, you'll be supporting the partners, and you can win an amazing camp setup. If you've never looked at the jumping jack trailers, they're freaking awesome. You can park your ATVs on top of them, and they have certain weight limits that I don't know, but I know you can put four-wheelers, ATVs on top of them, haul them like a trailer, and then when you get to camp, pull all the stuff off top, and you've got a pop-up tent available for you, and it's a 6x8 and it's their blackout edition. So highly recommend that you check that out. Definitely love BlackOvis and all the gear they offer over there. They even sell my favorite backpack, Initial Ascent, and much more. Favorite boots, the Crispies, and so many other things. But again, you can get bonus entries by purchasing BlackOvis gear. Use the code RedBeard. Use the code RedBeard over at BlackOvis and check out the links down below to make sure that you get entered in to win the Jumping Jack trailer 6x8 blackout. Go check it out, guys. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the pod.
So it's kind of that Everest was kind of a what is the nuts and bolts of our hardcore hunter? They want it light, durable, they want it priced correctly, right? Everything's getting more expensive. So that was, a byproduct of what we did. We don't ever build something to generally a price point. We build something to fit a need, and then the price falls where the price falls. We never want to build a budget thing because that's
Mm,
not what we do. We build tough equipment to fit a need, right? So the Everest is by no means cheaper than anything. It costs less because we don't have some of all the parts and pieces that your Epsilon does. It doesn't have that microtune windage and elevation, but it also has that
mm,
microtune blade angle adjustment. So if you're getting little vertical tears, you can adjust it. If you're getting fletching contact, you adjust your timing and you can adjust your launcher. So a lot of advantages to the hunter. And also that third bearing body design. Some people, when they shoot, they have a high wrist form and a follow
mm.
through where they'll actually get hand contact with the bottom of the rest. So that rest was also, that's why we have the hybrid and the Trinity, because it's a two bearing and a three bearing design to try to fit different archers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So with I know the hybrid was, I wouldn't say budget. Budget has a bad rap, but it's more budget friendly
Hmm.
was the hybrid. But
Yeah,
I didn't care. I'm not one to care about the weight necessarily. And so I wanted something that I could throw at a brick wall and it'd be fine. And
yeah,
that's, with the extra protection of the launcher bar on the Trinity
yes.
Pro, or the Trinity, that's exactly what I was going for. And so,
Yeah,
um,
and
you
if
know,
you look at the weights, so even from our primer, which is our beginning offering, right? It has none of the bells and whistles. You can't adjust the launcher
mm,
angle. It has no micro tune. But for that $150 range, you can throw it against the wall. It's still a hamskea. Like I hunted with one for 3 years just to test it out. It is by far the lightest rest. But it's
mm,
interesting from our lightest rest to our heaviest rest is the difference of you cutting off your toothbrush handle and not. Like it's very minimal. Like
yeah,
people look at the bulk and think it's heavy, but it's billet aluminum under, it's a black anodized rest, but it's billet aluminum. So it's not like we're building them out of, bricks or anything. So the durability that you get for the extra ounce or 2 ounces, a lot of times you're on a backcountry sheep hunt, right? You have no backup option, right? You're gonna a couple ounces to make sure you have no failures is worth it.
yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And again, yeah, that's just one of those things that I've kind of wondered, and it does seem like the primer to the hybrid to the Trinity, there was the difference in the micro adjust, a little bit more
Hmm.
protection on the bar for the launcher, etc. But so going back to the Everest being one of the newer offerings, it doesn't have the micro adjust windage and elevation, but it does have micro adjust on the launcher angle.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. I could see why.
Hmm.
Now, can I ask why you didn't have a like the Epsilon with micro adjust launcher angle?
Part of it is just kind of as you're designing things, things are a 3 to 4 year process, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes you come out with the Everest, which is a great solid platform, but you can't always put all of the great ideas because eventually you have to come out with something, right? You can't
Yeah,
wait 5 years to come out with the perfect rest.
yeah.
So, depending on when this podcast launches, this is probably the first that anybody's going to hear of it, so you and your audience get a bit of an exclusive here. Pay attention to the ATA show if this comes out before that. So we came out with a couple of new peep systems, but all I can say is we're not done.
Well, I will say this is going to come out post ATA show. So if
Okay.
we're putting this out post ATA show, what can you tell us?
It'll solve your question. That's what I
Okay.
can tell you. So yeah. So
Perfect. Awesome.
yep.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. And it makes sense. Like you don't want to also throw everything out there at once and then you have to wait another couple years to have another rest come out. And so because I do like the Everest, but I do like the micro adjust personally because I do shoot different arrows almost throughout the year. Like for example, I just got the HLRs from Victory before my
Hmm.
whitetail hunt. So I'm like resetting up because it added 30, 40 grains, whatever, to my super light arrows. And so making sure those are flying correctly with a different type of carbon. And so it's reacting different in the bow, etc. I had to do a little bit of micro tuning there. And so I personally like the micro adjust as
Yep.
well. And the only time I've ever had personally issues with contact on the wings of the Epsilon is with the fletchings was when I have a super steep helical, and that's really the
Yep.
only time I've encountered issues. And a taller vein. If it's a shorter vein, I don't have any issues, but it's
Well,
more of
and
that.
two, to that point, it's going back to the timing of a limb-driven rest. The beautiful thing of a limb-driven rest is you get the accuracy of a blade rest, but then you have the freedom of the fall away, right? So you can be far more accurate. You can time that rest exactly when it's fall. So if you're starting to get fletching contact, whether it's a tall vein or a stiff helical, you need to speed that rest up a little bit. It's staying up too long. So we have a lot of technical videos on our website that will kind of get you. So there's a way, if you have a draw board or access to a draw board, that you can time that rest perfectly. And like I like to set up mine where they're dropping 50% of the arrow. So they're getting a
Mm,
lot more guidance than your standard flip up rest that attaches to the cable. That's only 10% guidance. Those drop too fast. So your arrow's not even done paradoxing before that thing
mm.
drops. Is where with a HAMSKEA or limb-driven rest, you can have that arrow paradox, get some guidance, and then fall out of the way in time of your fletchings. So there's some big advantages to the limb attachment and kind of fine-tuning where it's attached to your limb.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. That definitely makes sense. And that's definitely getting into the nitty-gritty. This is definitely for the archers that want to up their game, especially hunting, and make sure that you get rid of all
Mhm.
of any kind of variables when you're in the field and things that can happen when you're shooting because it's never shooting flat ground. You're either shooting out of a tree
Nope.
stand or maybe you're shooting out of a ground blind, but even then, the majority of the time that I'm personally out there hunting, it's either uphill, downhill shots, side hill shots, or out of a tree stand, and
Yep.
those are never flat ground in your Crocs in the backyard, you know. So
No. Well, and two, when you start shooting broadheads, it changes things. Like I tell everybody, like there's always the great debate of what broadhead to shoot. Shoot whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you can make an
yeah,
accurate shot with. An accurate shot will get it done, right? But you need to be practicing with. Sometimes I even find practice heads don't fly as a saying, depending on what brand it is. Some are better than others, but to me, I have to be shooting the broadhead I'm going to be hunting with because it makes a difference. So I always urge people to make sure that they're, practice how you're going to play because it makes a difference. Just like you said, you're on your knees, you're half laying down, you're not standing in your backyard when you're making that shot. And then it always happens faster than you want it to be, no matter how prepared you are. So
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
being prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. So with I guess, is there anything with the between the Everest and the Epsilon that you would say, I don't know, your most popular Q&As, with those two rests, like which one you would steer someone towards, or whatever the most popular questions that you get based on those two?
It's a lot like a pickup truck, right? They're both going to get you where you need to go. They're both going to get it done. One's got the moonroof and the micro tune and all of that, but it's still, it's honestly kind of down to budget a lot of times, right? It's if it's a budget or it's your shooting style, right? So if it hits your hand, then the Everest is still a solid, great rest to shoot. You can't beat the Epsilon as far as durability and options and what it'll do, right? So. I know many guys that have, their backup bow has an Everest and their main bow has an Epsilon. So it's really personal preference. A lot of it can be budget. The hard thing with us is our rests are all really good. So
Hmm.
they're all going to perform and they're all going to shoot great. Like I can't steer anybody away from a primer, honestly, at $150. Like I said, 100 with it for 3 years. We were kind of testing them initially, and then I was like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I just kept shooting with it. So until I needed to move on because it was light, compact, and small. So, from Everest to Epsilon, like you really can't go wrong. It kind of comes down to personal preferences, honestly.
Hmm. No, for sure. Yeah, and it really is, and that's a hard thing whenever I'm talking to people, or I go up to Wild Arrow and help them out in the lobby. And I don't work on bows per se, but I know enough about equipment and arrows and such that I love
Hmm.
walking people doing all the work up to putting the bow together. And so, walking people through it, people will come in and ask all the time, like, hey, what's this and that, and what do you shoot? And I'm like, well, this is what I shoot, but what I want to know is
Hmm.
what is your main purpose with this bow? What are you doing with it? Are you going to be the
Yep.
guy that just shoots a couple arrows a month, if that, and then you go out and hunt with it and you just want to know that you've set it and you can forget it? Or do you like to tinker? Because if you just set it and forget it, like you said, you can't go wrong with the primer. Take that extra money and maybe spend it on some nicer arrows or nicer broadhead or whatever, something else in the setup. Or if you like to tinker, definitely Epsilon, because all the micro adjusts and everything that you can do with that. And so it's just one of those things that, yeah, it's definitely a personal based or case to case scenario when it comes to equipment and what you put on your bow. Sweet. So let's see, we've gone over the weights, the Epsilon, and the Everest, and also, of course, whatever's coming out at ATA. Pay attention to that, guys.
Yeah.
Go check out HAMSKEA, because this will come out after ATA, so it'll be on their website. And then again, if you're local to Utah, I highly recommend going into Wild Arrow. They're an amazing shop. They're going to take care of you. And honestly, guys, if you have a bow shop within driving distance from you, go support your local bow shop. And maybe you've had a bad experience in the past, give them a second chance, just because without local bow shops, archery is going to start to die. And it just really is. There's not enough people that want to work on their own stuff in their garages. And even so, it's hard to build a community that way. So go support your local bow shop before you go online and make a purchase. And you'll be able to
Yeah.
find
No,
Hamsky. I don't know any. Oh, go ahead.
I'll add to that too. If you're in your local bow shop and you don't see what you're after, let them know that. Don't just walk out because those guys are open to feedback. They're,
Mm-hmm.
especially in your area in Utah, you're spoiled. You guys have, I mean, archery is so big there. And same with on the Colorado Front Range where I'm at, we're spoiled, right? Some folks don't have a shop that's close to them. So the
Mm-hmm.
folks that do, give those bow shops feedback because they, when they start, we get so many calls going, we keep getting asked for this. What is it? And then we get them in there and get it educated, and then they start carrying it, and then it's available
Yeah.
for people. I know the easy button seems to be online these days and not waiting for anything, but our products require a little bit of expertise. The guys at a good bow shop have worked with our stuff, talked to us. They know the ins and outs. They can save you a lot of time, money, and aggravation by going there and getting it set up by folks that know what they're doing.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And it really is like, you go to a big box, even listen, if you're looking, this is being recorded around Christmas, that's why I'm bringing it up. But people ask you what you want and you ask for a gift card, like don't get a gift card to a big box store. If you're into archery,
Mhm.
go send them the link of wherever they can call, and most archery shops will let you get a gift card there. But definitely, I'm going to start harping on this a lot more in 2025. Is just go into your local bow shop. Don't purchase online if you don't need to, if there is a local one. And if you've had a problem with your bow shop, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know your bow shop, but let's see if we can get that, maybe customer service, whatever, resolved so that you can go back in and support your local guys. Because again, it is you don't get into owning a bow shop to make money. You just don't. Like, you do it for the passion. These guys aren't trying to get rich off of you. They may cost $10-15 more than your Cabela's or whatever, but you're going to get so much more expertise than you will a 16-year-old setting up your bow at Cabela's, So that's just my 2 cents. Now I'll get off my soapbox here and let's move on to the peeps. So with these peeps, now I shoot a Raptor peep. I really like it. I like the way that it lines up on target and everything like that. But I do want to ask you, there was a new, and I'm getting into target archery, guys. So I'm definitely even more green into target archery than I am, the 5-6 years that I've been shooting a bow. And so that I'm not going to know all this terminology. I know clarifiers, verifiers, and magnification on your scope housing, but talk us through the new peep system that you guys have and why it's different than what may be out there previously.
So we actually came out with 2 new systems, and one is geared towards the hunter and one is more geared towards the target archer. Now, both can be used in both scenarios. But going back to your original Raptor, what makes that peep different is it's got light baffles inside of it. So it's our light baffling technology. It's the same kind of thing as telescopes use. So when you're looking through that, the light glare is actually stopping at those baffles and it's not getting to your eye. Kind of a simple way is if you're looking, over a parking lot, right, and you see the heat rising, you see it's a blurred vision, right? The same thing can happen when light starts bouncing around inside a peep. So you probably noticed it with just your Raptor. You see clearer sight picture just looking through that tube with no lens, no anything, than you do with a standard ring style peep because of that light baffling technology. A lot of shops you can just hold up a Raptor and look at something on the wall that's got like a map or something. You can see more detail than even if you're just looking at it with your naked eye. You put it through there and it's just clear. So that baffling technology, now we've introduced the FS Raptor system. So what that does is it introduces changeable aperture sizes in a hunting peep. And why that's important is if you change your setup, right? You change your sight, you change your housing size, you change if you run your sight in or out, now you can adjust that aperture to fit your sight picture, because you want good eclipses, right? You don't want a lot of space when you're looking through your peep. You don't want a lot of space around your scope housing because that can cause a lot of inconsistencies. So you can adjust that, and then also you can add a verifier lens. So what a verifier lens does is for folks that are starting to have trouble seeing their pins, a lot of folks will have issues where their pins are blurry. So what a verifier does is it clears up that pin, so your target won't be affected, just your pin. So think of it as readers, and it's not just for aging folks. There's a lot of people that actually have issues seeing their pin. A lot of people will be like, I'm not hunting with a lens in my peep. That's just a liability. Well, you not being able to see is also a liability, right? So the folks that can't see, this is an opportunity to them still hunt, right? Because some folks look through a peep sight and they just can't see their pins at all. So this enables them to keep bow hunting, to continue bow hunting, to be more effective bow hunting, even though you do have a lens in your peep sight. And going back to the different verifiers, we have these tools that you can go to your local pro shop, and they have all the different lenses in them, so you can hold them up, because it's very difficult too for me to tell you what's going on with your eyes, your draw length. There's so many variables that I can't tell you what verifier lens you need. You need to go try it. So your bow shop will have access to these that have all the different lenses, and then they also have all the different aperture sizes. So you can sit there and test, what aperture size do I need if you're just going to go with a regular Raptor peep? And then you can also pick your verifier lens that helps you. So you can get a standard kit that just comes with the peep and the apertures, and you can buy the lens you need. or you can buy the deluxe kit that comes with more. So it's kind of, you can tailor it to how you want to, but you can be very efficient. If you're a hunter and you just need to see your pins, you can get exactly what you need through your bow shop.
Brief moment here, interrupting the podcast to remind you of another amazing partner of the show, Grizzly Coolers. Grizzly Coolers, guys, they are fantastic. Well, they're more than just coolers. So Grizzly. If you're in the Midwest, East Coast, or even in the West Coast, if you have a place for a place to put a permanent stand, box blind, they have amazing blinds. They have troughs if you're looking to put up water. I don't know the technical name for that. They have so many other things like this cool, amazing hat right here. I love the black camo. And also coolers of all sizes. They have soft-sided coolers, which we've taken up to Alaska, the backpack cooler, which is fantastic. They have your coolers for your day-to-day use. And this right here, honestly, guys, I don't drink coffee or anything like that, but I put my energy drinks and cold drinks in this thing right here. It is fantastic. Look, slide, super smooth, and it is magnet. So super easy to clean right there. There we go. Got it to focus. All right. Now, guys, go check it out. They have amazing single walled cups. They have the double line cups. They have tumblers if you're into the big tumblers. They have the gallon size monster jug if you're looking to get a gallon in a day of your water. So all of that, guys, you can go and check out Grizzly with code RedBeard10. Save you some money, support the show, support amazing partners. USA made coolers. Fantastic. I trust my game meat. I trust my family's camping trips with them. And they're made for box step ups too, guys. If you need a box step up, go grab one. Check out Grizzly Coolers and Grizzly Drinkware and Grizzly everything. Go check it out, guys, with code RedBeard10. The link down below. Thank you so much for the support. Now let's get back to the podcast. Awesome.
So the second
cool.
Yeah, the second peep system is our DC peep, which is more geared towards target, but it can be used in a hunting situation, absolutely. And that is using clarifiers. So a clarifier is when you run a magnification in your sight housing. So if you're looking through magnification on your sight housing, it's going to blur the target. You won't be able to see it very well. It's like looking through a magnifying glass. So what a clarifier does is it clears up your target so you can see your target clear. And that's more in target archery. You're not going to see, I won't say people don't hunt with it because you've seen it all, right? But it's predominantly in your target archers are using that magnification in their sight, which requires a clarifier in their peep. And that I have a 3D printed version of that peep. So what's neat about this system is it's the DC peep because it's a dual cartridge. So on the front of the peep, this would be towards your sight, there is a cartridge that holds your clarifier lens. And it's got a couple of these access points because we have a tool that will handle the lens, so you actually never have to touch the lens with your fingers. So you'll pick it up out of the case. Here's an example of it. This is the little tweezer. You can use this tweezer to pick up a lens out of this and put it right into that baffle cartridge and never actually have to touch the lens. So you don't have to waste time in field if you want to swap them. Then you don't have to worry about them getting dirty, you dropping it, losing it. So it goes right into the end of this peep. And then on this side is your apertures. So now it's in this peep system, I can sit there and change apertures to lighting conditions and make that fit perfectly the whole time. Because if I'm shooting if I'm shooting an indoor tournament, I'm in one side of the building, then I get moved to another bale and it's brighter or darker. Now I can make easy adjustments. I don't have to mess with my lens and I can customize. There's a lot of 3D archers too that will be from sun, shades, sun's coming up, you're at noon. All these different lighting conditions affects your sight picture a lot. So you can fine tune this from shot to shot to make sure that you're as most consistent as you can be. So the DC, the target peep, it is a bit of a larger housing, and it is actually made out of a magnesium. Let me pull this out here. So this is the target peep. It's a magnesium housing, and this will accept the two different cartridges. So it's a lot smaller, obviously, than my big 3D printed. And then the FS, the Hunting Raptor peep, is aluminum. So, and then it accepts the cartridges too. So those are our two new offerings, and they come in these um, really cool cases that you can have fit in your quiver. They lock down pretty good. They have a seal around them, so we're not going to say they're waterproof, but they're water resistant. They're pretty tough. So if you have a quiver or keep them at your truck or whatnot when you're hunting, keep them in your toolkit. It's a nice way to keep things organized and safe.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the first thing that pops into my mind is just kind of going back to liking to have a system that's bomb proof. And even with, for example, like the sight that I use and things like that, I like to either Loctite it down or use something that has as few screws as possible because I don't like things coming loose.
Hmm.
With there being those extra little components and obviously a peep, we'll just say the hunting peep, say you throw,
Yeah.
a couple hundred arrows a month or so out of your hunting bow or more than that. Do you have
Hmm.
issues with that working its way loose? Do you need to check it like you do your other screws in your bow before you go
Hmm.
hunting? Like what do you guys recommend as far as maintenance goes on that?
So I'm always going to tell you to check things, to verify
Okay.
things. It doesn't matter whether it's mod screws or sight bolts or the peep, any of that. It's hard to show you, but when you see these in person, there's actually a dimple on these threads. So it's actually an interference fit. So as you put this in here, it's actually pretty difficult to thread them in once you get to a certain point because it's actually an interference with those threads.
Mm.
Um, but also a backup, like what we've done on our previous peeps before, is we've actually used Teflon tape on those threads and it really locks them down. But now we have a feature molded into these, and it's on the DC and on the FS, both have the same technology, that it actually has an interference fit with those threads. So unless you're taking this in and out 100 times, you
Mm.
should never have an issue with that. But always check your stuff, especially a peep or anything like that. Mod, screws, whatever it is, you should be checking that anyway. But then to a backup or like a secondary thing is you could wrap those threads with Teflon tape, and that even creates even more of a tight fit.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that makes sense. And yeah, that's just the first thing that I could think of. But at the same
Mhm.
time, like, you know, you're not getting rid of the Raptor peep if people just want the standard
No,
Raptor. It's just
absolutely
a
not.
newer version of it, so that if you do change your sight out more often, or maybe you're going to somewhere that has more lighting that's similar to indoor versus outdoor, because that's the other thing too, is when you get your peep set up, you want to make sure you walk outside in a bright day and see how that reacts as well, because your peep's going to be different as far as the sizing based on where you're shooting it, because indoor lighting is different than outdoor lighting, and so you want to make sure that you get your bow set up that way properly. So that'll definitely save archers or bow shops a lot of time of having to press the bow back down, swap out the peep sight, all of that. You can just simply screw in a new aperture size based on whatever sight that you're running.
Yeah, and it gives the big part of it is it gives the ability of a verifier. So those folks that are struggling to see now have an
Mm.
option in our line of things to do it. The Raptor itself is not going away anytime too soon. We have 7 different sizes in that, and it's going back to all the different size apertures, all the way from a 16th to a quarter to find the right aperture for you, and that's just the standard Raptor that are fixed. You can't change anything once you put it in. It is how it is. But now the hunter that has trouble seeing or somebody who wants the ability to change their aperture size, they have an option now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that sounds like that definitely addresses a lot of issues that people could have with the site, and provides a lot of options for people. When it goes to target archery, I know there's a lot more tinkering, which is crazy to think that that's the case, because I tinker a lot with my hunting setup, but there's even more tinkering that can be done with target setups, which is just blows my mind. But it's cool that you guys have that option, and you can change it there on the fly with the tool and
Hmm.
everything available. So again, you get to a spot, the lighting's not correct, or your verifier's not working the way that you need, you can go in and change it right there instead of having to go back to a bow shop or bring a full toolkit. It's just in this small little container. So that's pretty awesome. I guess is there anything else that we haven't touched on as far as product wise that you'd like to hit on?
Another big area for us is our tools, right? Our waypoint arrow level, our Gen 2 sight levels, right? You know, for a hunter, I think the biggest thing that folks miss on is setting your third axis. A bow shop or another shooter cannot properly set your third axis. It has to be you holding the bow at full draw to properly set your third axis. So if you're shooting up or down hills, and a lot of folks out east are like, "Oh, I'm just in a tree stand, I only shoot 20 yards." Yeah, but you're shooting at a very big angle. It's so important to have your third axis. That is the difference between a 4 or 6 inch miss having your third axis off just a little bit. And I know there's a lot of bow shops out there that do kind of in a jig that'll get you close, but it has to be done at full draw with the archer because it doesn't account for your grip, how you torque the bow, and also the static to full draw shift of the riser. When the riser is being held by the cables versus when it's being held by the string, it transfers that torque and that power of that bow. So it's critical to set your third axis at full draw with the archer that's going to be shooting the bow. So that is a huge place for people to improve. It really is that third axis. And tree stand hunters, saddle hunters that are shooting at steep angles out of a tree, it's magnified the steeper the angle. So our
Yeah.
tools are another
Yeah.
great resource for our stuff. And also to our YouTube channel, we have a lot of technical stuff. That's a big part of us is educating archers. And of course, if you have any questions, we have a great staff here. You call and get on the tech line and we're happy to answer. Send us emails, however you send a pigeon, we'll answer your questions however we can. So see us at shows and shoots where we do the full ASA circuit, and we've done some tacks in the past. However, you know, the pro shops too are a wealth of knowledge. So if you can't get your help you need from your pro shop, that's where I'm going to send you first, and then happy for you to reach out to us. We're always here to help. So whether it's funny how many questions we get about not our products or something else on the bow, but we're going to help you get and shooting straight and right how you want. So give us a call. We're happy to help you.
Love it. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, I don't really have any other questions. I mean, you answered pretty much all my questions, and again, I highly recommend people go and check it out. If you're in the market for a new rest or a new peep sight, you're setting up a new bow for 2025, whatever it may be, definitely recommend that you take a look at the HAMSKEA rest. They have been bomb proof in the times that I've used it and in the years that I've been using HAMSKEA. And obviously the rest, and then the weights, if you're looking at new weights for your stabilizer setup, being able to quickly change them out, or even just if you just like the look of them, and they function really well. They do awesome in that regard. But more than anything, I'm going to hammer home the rest is I don't even know what organ to, because it probably the heart of a bow setup, because if that thing's not working, you can't shoot. You can't. And so you want to be able to have something that you can trust. And when you have that big bull or buck, or even if you're on doe patrol in front of you, you want to be able to go out there and make sure that your bow is functioning properly, so that you can trust HAMSKEA for sure. And then I guess I'll leave the links down below for the HAMSKEA YouTube page as well, where you guys can go over there and find some tech tips. Again, go check them out at your local bow shops, and then reach out to them if you have any questions or any needs going forward. Is there anything else, John, that you want to leave with the audience?
No, just want to thank you and your audience. I appreciate you having us on, and I look forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Awesome. Appreciate it, John. Well, like I always say, guys, make sure you get out there, do everything that you can to make sure your bow setup is dialed. Now is the time to do it, here in the off season, or if you're in late bow season. Still, make sure your setup is dialed. If you're looking forward to September, like I am every single year, elk is my favorite by far. You definitely want to make sure you get your setup done and dialed in before the season. So get it done now. Get the best parts that you can have confidence in, and HAMSKEA is one of those. So with that being said, thanks so much, John. And like I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it. Hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed that conversation with John Vitera over there at HAMSKEA Archery, as we nerded out about archery gear, etc. Thank you so much for tuning into this. Again, guys, if you need any gear, right now is the time to tinker. Go and check out down below. If you're looking for a HAMSKEA Archery rest, go into Wild Arrow. Look for them over at Wild Arrow. Or if you're not local to Wild Arrow, go and check them out on BlackOvis.com. get your gear best price possible. You're supporting me, you're supporting the partners of the show, and you're getting the best gear that I trust and believe in. So with all of that being said, guys, really appreciate you. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Check out one of these videos that I'm going to leave linked somewhere here, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. And like I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it.